Gilliam is a retired FBI special agent and Navy SEAL. It is good to have you on the program. So much I want to get to with you today. Are we less safe today because the key provision that allowed the collection of this metadata has expired?
Well, that information is still being collected.
Yes.
It's just not being collected by the government. It's being collected by the phone company.
Right.
And it's the same information that people used to throw out in their trash.
So why the fuss? Why is all of this, people are hamstrung,
Right.
folks are going into conniptions, we've got filibustering, delaying time. Why all of this why is this happening?
It's good politics. That's what I'm
And
looking
theater?
at. It's good theater, good politics, but the reality is, I mean, look, this absolutely worked in certain areas. What doesn't work is when you have an act like the Patriot Act where they take it and they allow it to expire instead of saying what works and what doesn't work,
Right.
and then they put politics into
But wait
it.
a minute,
That's
Jonathan,
a
what are
problem.
you talking about as working here? No evidence the program has been abused, okay,
Right.
so, or that the program stopped a terrorist attack. So what are you talking about in terms of the program, the act working?
So you have to remember, we look at things a lot like a police department would go out on the street and they act and they stop a crime.
Right.
This is a war on terror, just like similar to the war on the mafia, right? It's as long term. So when somebody makes a phone call or gets a phone call from a bad guy, somehow it's connected with a bad phone. They can then go back and look at the spider web and create the puzzle. It's not all about stopping an imminent attack as much as it is kind of just getting in the way of the enemy and kind of trying to stop their ability to flow. And also building the puzzle of who all these different people are inside our enemies.
So you don't agree with Glenn Greenwald? You would disagree with him in a number of areas, but when he essentially says the bulk collection program is essentially still in place, it's just not as robust a system as was in place before this provision was allowed to expire.
It's not as robust because now they have to go through the process of
step.
getting the subpoena to go to the phone company. Plus, that's a third party that's holding that information, and it just takes more time to actually go through and do that. Plus, when we have the information in our hands, we have the ability to put it into our computers and really analyze it our own way. There's a big difference.
So, Jonathan, let's talk about what really annoys you. It is the fact that so many of these issues in this country, USA Freedom Act, the Patriot Act, it's a last-minute nation, right? We're always up against the clock. We're in many cases creating, and we don't think these things out fully.
They're creative problems.
So let me hear you out on this. What frustrates you about that, and how does it hurt, let's say, security or us in other areas in this country?
Well, throughout the years, somehow this country has become a reactive country.
Yes.
We react to everything. And when even the Patriot Act was a reactive act. We should have had in place years before that ways that we were looking into these different individuals, these different terrorist groups, because this is something that didn't just start on 9/11. We've been dealing with this since really 1979 when we had all of our hostages taken out of Iran.
Right.
So we need to stop being reactive. And what I see mixed in with reactive actions is also politics. And when you put those two together, I can tell you the best example of this is the airline industry and how it flows with their security in an airport. It's bottlenecked, it doesn't work well, the rest of the airport is completely opened. But
new information about TSA today to support what you're talking about.
A lot of smoke and mirrors. And I think when they do have something that works or something that's in place, it needs to be evaluated. Where does it work and where does it not work? You know, our whole strategic war plan for how we're going to fight the war on terror is very similar to the war on drugs, and it just does not work.
So that gets me, and I know you talk about all these issues, that gets me to the U.S. strategy, to the extent there is one that's evident and obvious and we can talk about, for taking on ISIL in Iraq, and I'm thinking about a piece from one of our correspondents, Imran Khan, earlier, and I know there was a debate in the country as to whether or not there should be a ground intervention, should ground forces be reintroduced into that theater. You have any thoughts on that?
I think that there should be, as long as we have
there should be?
As long as we have a strategic war plan to finally stop this movement that's going forward. And that's a big problem. It's not just the United States. You know, we've now had terrorist attacks in Canada, in Denmark, in Australia, in France. all these people need to realize a couple of things. Each one has their own domestic part in this, where they have to secure their own borders and secure the online region that that affects them the most, how recruiting is done.
Yeah.
And then they have to realize that, very similar to Hitler and his movement, that was not something that was just going to stop where he said it would stop. It was going to continue to move. What we have now with fundamental Islamic Mohammedanism.
And you equate those two. You equate what's happening.
I do, because you have to look at the fundamental beliefs of these insurgents. They want to spread and they want to move beyond their region. Before, with Al-Qaeda, it was very regionalized. They still would attack the westernized countries to try to get them out. With ISIS and with these different groups, I don't differentiate between Al-Qaeda and ISIS and the different names. I look at it as one ideology, and that ideology is going global.
Jonathan, I ran along in this segment because you're just so doggone interesting. Good to have you on the program.
Always good to be here.
Yeah, pleasure.
Thank
Jonathan Gilliam, he's a retired FBI special agent and Navy SEAL. Pleasure.